Speaking with more power doesn't involve articulating yourself like a know-it-all professor whilst holding the Superman stance and gazing into people's eyes. No. It can involve 4 tiny tweaks to your vocabulary. But first of all, why bother speaking more powerfully in the first place? It's because the 2 things that combine to make charisma are warmth and power. When you meet a charismatic person, you believe, oh, this person genuinely cares about me. Warmth. But they carry themselves with an air of authority and competence, meaning if I wanted them to, they could move mountains for me. Now zooming out here, there's a huge element of you need genuine life competence, skills and intelligence to move mountains for someone, but there's a huge verbal element in terms of how you project this authority to others, which these 4 language hacks are going to help you with. And by authority and power in this video, we mean your ability to influence others and the world around you. But enough of the background and the waffling, let's get straight into point number 1. And yes, I did shave my head again. Woohoo! English teacher Lewis in the building. First point, verbs and nouns. Speaking more powerfully would mean nothing without an ability to motivate other people to do things, but usually when we try to motivate others, we use verbs instead of nouns. For example, can you help wash the dishes up, or can you listen to me for a second? But research from Stanford University suggests we should do otherwise. Researchers got 51 4 to 5 year old children and invited them to play with toys, crayons and other objects, but when time came to stop playing and clear up the mess, the children were then asked something very interesting by the researchers. The researchers asked some of the children to either help clear up the mess or be a helper and clear up the mess. And the results show the children who were asked to be a helper helped more by a third. So what does this suggest? 1, that we should be a little bit careful when applying research done on kids to adult life, but the idea is when you frame your requests of other people as an opportunity to uphold a positive identity, they're more motivated to act. Because human behaviour is identity based. After all, if you believe you're a good, helpful and charitable person, you're going to jump at the chance to maintain that identity. To illustrate this 1 point further, lawyers, politicians and football fans do this all of the time. A lawyer with his funny little hat might say he's not a criminal to indicate their otherwise guilty subject has committed a crime but they're not a permanent felon. A football fan might say, I watch football but I'm not a fanatic, to indicate they like the sport but not enough to form an identity around it. And lastly, politicians and governments do this all of the time by encouraging you to help your country by becoming a voter rather than to just go out and simply vote. So if you want someone to change their behaviour, frame the interaction as an opportunity for them to confirm a desired positive identity. What this might look like is, don't ask someone, can you help clean the dishes? Ask, can you be a helper and clean the dishes? Don't say in an interview or on your CV, I'm hard working. Say, I'm a hard worker. And if you want someone to listen, yes, that's an ear, ask them to be a listener. If you want someone to lead, ask them to be a leader. And if you want someone to perform, ask them to be a top performer. Point number 2. Point number 2, I can't versus I don't. You might have heard this point before in the context of behaviour change, so we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. When you respond to someone offering you something or requesting something of you with I can't, you imply an external force is limiting your behaviour. But when you respond with, sorry, I don't do this thing, you speak from a place of self-respect and empowered choice. To give you a quick example, let's say you're at a dinner party and someone offers you a piece of ice cream and your response is, sorry, I can't eat ice cream, I'm on a diet. You convey that you're not fully in control of your behaviour and that this diet is limiting your choices in life. But when you respond with, sorry, I don't eat ice cream, you convey that you're acting based on a rule, all of which people respect. In the words of our boy Shane Parrish, whose book I've recently just read called Clear Thinking, highly recommend that, people question decisions, but they follow rules. But let's zoom out here to consider the bigger picture. In an interesting study which Jonah Berger references in his book Magic Words, which has inspired this video, 2 groups of people both interested in healthy eating, were asked to either say, I can't eat this, or I don't eat this, when facing temptations to eat junk food. But when the study came to a close and the participants returned to the researchers to hand in their survey, the researchers then did something slightly mean. They offered the participants a chocolate bar as a sign of gratitude for taking part in the study. But remember, they had taken part in the study to learn more about healthy eating. And the results show 75% of the people in the I can't group took the chocolate bar. But the number of people in the I don't group who took the chocolate bar was cut in half. So the bottom line here is, when you say I don't to someone offering you something or requesting something of you, you not only signal from a social point of view that you're principled and you have high standards and you act in line with those principles and high standards, but from a personal behaviour change point of view, you increase your chances of following your rule. To see a real life example of this, check out this short clip of Dr. K, an online psychiatrist, responding to Stephen Bartlett's question of what do you think about Andrew Tate when he was on his podcast.
What do you think of Andrew Tateism then?
So as a general rule, I don't comment on people that I don't speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me the features of what you're talking about.
Okay, so the recent wave of...
As you could see, Stephen clearly respected Dr. K's rule by reframing the question, as did many other people respect Dr. K's rule in the comments. So let's finalise the point with this. Take a moment to consider a situation you've been in one too many times in the past, where you're trying to communicate something to someone but they're just not accepting it. Whether it's a friend, family member, colleague or a boss. They're not accepting it because you're likely communicating what you're saying as a decision rather than a rule. As a I can't rather than a I don't. So take this moment to consider some of your rules. Some examples might be, I don't make decisions over the phone. This is from Daniel Kahneman, the famous psychology writer. I started using that rule over the last year. Cannot tell you how much of a saving grace it has been. If I'm on a sales call with someone or someone's trying to hustle me into making a decision, I communicate the rule and they understand, oh, no pressure for Lewis to make this decision. I now understand his rule and realise he needs a few days to make this decision. I don't talk about ex-partners. That could be a saving grace for some. I don't stay in conversations that involve gossip. Oh, go you. I don't stay out past 11 p.m. That could be great if you're facing peer pressure. And finally, I don't work overtime or on weekends if you're facing a tyrannical boss, which your boy did about 2 years ago. Final caveat here. Your rule has to be real. It cannot be fake. This isn't some manipulation tactic to get yourself out of a sticky situation and portray a false level of power and authority to other people. No, the rules you communicate to other people have to be rules you genuinely want to align your behaviour with. Because in order for other people to accept your rule, you have to communicate it with a foundation of belief. You need every ounce of truth and authenticity guiding your communication so that they can realise, oh, this MF stands on business. And they genuinely have this rule. Because if you're communicating a rule that you don't believe in, what makes you think other people are going to believe in that rule and follow it and accept it? Not to mention your non-belief will leak out in your verbal and non-verbal cues. Find the genuine rules that you want to live in line with and communicate them. Point number 3. Second to last point, shoulds versus coulds. It's time to become a rebel and foster a could mindset. When it comes to making decisions or weighing up different options in life, we limit ourselves psychologically and cut off the source of our power by asking what should I do rather than what could I do. And the reason why I'm going to argue that you you'd do well to get rid of the word should completely from your vocabulary and always be on guard whenever someone is using that word to get you to do something. The reason why I'm arguing that is because the word should, when making decisions, is going to set you up for a lose-lose situation. Mainly because asking what should I do implies the choice between one of two evils, which is okay if you're making a clear moralistic judgment, but not for trade-off scenarios. To give you a quick example, take the standard question of, should I go to university or not? Maybe you've answered that, you're answering it, or you're going to answer that question in the future. Asking should I go to university is an impossible question to answer, because when you weigh it up, you might reason, oh yeah, well, I guess I should go to university because everyone else my age is going. That's what people in my culture do. Oh, my mum wants me to go, so yeah, I guess I probably should. That's limiting your agency as an individual to expand beyond the moralistic expectations of your society, family and culture, to expand into the creative, out-of-the-box thinking that would improve your life. For example, if you changed the question a little bit from should I go to university to what could I do with my life, you expand your creative capacities by realizing at any given time when you're making a decision and you ask what could I do, not what should I do, you realize there are multiple different options for you to choose from, which expands yourself rather than limits yourself psychologically. You could go to university, or you could start that business with your friend you can't stop speaking about. Or you could go to Costa Rica for 3 months and live on a farm and, smoke a bit of the Mary Jane for however long you want to. This is clearly demonstrated by a researcher called Francesca Gino, where she basically shows that asking what could you do rather than what should you do makes you think more creatively and outside of the box. And finally, this checks out with asking other people for advice. If you ask other people, what should I do? You're just going to get their moralistic value judgments and opinions thrown onto you, which is very spiritually aggressive. With each one of their suggestions, you're sinking and sinking in the psychological pit of despair. Asking, what could I do? Not only encourages you to think more outside of the box, but it encourages other people to think more creatively as well. So expand your options by asking could rather than should. Honestly, what should I do? You should do this. You should do. I can't stand it, boys and girls. Can't stand it. Final point number 4. If you didn't understand that what I'm saying is it's a red flag whenever someone uses the word should. Finally, point number 4. The world has gone pronoun mad nowadays, but there's one pronoun which doesn't get the attention it deserves. You. When researching for his book, Magic Words, Jonah Berger found the use of the word you on social media posts increased engagement, but the use of the same word on customer support pages resulted in them pages being voted as less helpful by customers. Stop going to turn the machine up. And the reason why is simple. When you go on social media, you're not scrolling with an intention to find anything most of the time, and you're bombarded with loads of different information, videos and bright flashing images. So when you watch a video or you read a post where someone is using the word you, it cuts through all of the noise and gives this information relevance to your life. And it also gives it a personal feel, as if this information is tailored for you and no one else, so you pay attention. But when you go on a customer support page, you're already there with an intention. You want to solve the problem you have. So reading any use of the word you makes it out as if the problem is your fault, and worse yet, you're going to have to do more work to solve the problem. So the key point here is, if you're writing something on social media, or you're making a YouTube video, maybe you're speaking to a large group, or even if you're speaking to someone one-on-one, and you know what you're about to say is relevant to your audience, use the word you, so it gives it more of a personal feel. But be warned, do not overuse this word in your personal relationships, because it implies personal responsibility. For example, don't know what happened then. Imagine you're sat on the sofa and your partner walks in and asks, "Did you feed the dog?" Your instinctual response is obviously, "Babe, WTF, it's Shark Week." But the use of the word you from your partner throws the responsibility of feeding the dog onto you, which is a bit of a tricky one if the conversation hasn't been had yet as to whose job it is to feed the dog. So in order to spark less defensiveness in you, she could ask, "Has the dog been fed?" Remove the you from the equation. Free the guys. Last example, I wanted to talk to you, but you were busy. That implies blame. What's better? I wanted to talk, but it didn't seem like the best time. Everyone's happy. So, in summary, When you want to motivate other people to do things, use nouns instead of verbs. When you want to communicate your rules to other people, use I don't instead of I can't. And if you want to make better, more creative decisions and get better advice from other people, use could instead of shoulds. And finally, to give what you're saying relevance to your audience, use the word you. Thank you very much for your time. Oh, one last thing. Magic trick. Open Dad's pants. Willie, thank you very much for your time and attention. Stay disciplined, playful and dangerous. Adios, muchachos y muchachas.